Welcome back to another episode of the Olivia Gamber podcast. And today we're going to do a solo episode. And this is going to be about a 30-minute masterclass on how to market and sell yourself as a premium product to premium buyers. Now, I think that this is a really high value topic just because at the end of the day, everyone needs to make more money. The cost of living is going up, inflation is rising. It's getting intense to keep up with the pace of the cost of living without actually focusing on also increasing our income. And what I have found now, just over the last decade, not only helping our clients who are in the top 10% of professionals in the country to upgrade their career, but also on my own journey as a business owner now, building and scaling my second company that's now 7 figures. And it's been so many lessons, so many painful and expensive lessons that I want to share the value of really focusing on people that not only can see your value, but can afford it. And when you are really trying to command that value, you can't be looking in the wrong places. And this is something I see over and over again with people that are just underpaying for their value of their skills, the services they're offering. Whether you're a business owner or it's a job, it's still a problem. And the fastest path to making more money is to offer your skills, whether that's as an employee or as a business, as a service, to high value customers. So executives, CEOs. For the sake of this episode, I'm going to focus on really what it takes to market to CEOs, because those are the top of the chain. And we do this every day at my company, Career Evolved. So how do you actually get the attention of a CEO when everybody's pitching them all day, every day? How do you position yourself and your value to be relevant? Because it's one thing to get the CEO's attention, it's another thing to keep that attention and actually convert that attention into an opportunity. Now, most people can't even get the CEO on the phone because they don't even know how, and they're not efficient at marketing their value. So I'm going to give you some top tips and tactics to go ahead and do that, because this is not just my opinion. We literally do this all day, every day. We have clients that are CEOs, COOs, CMOs that actually hire me and my team to call and do campaign outreaches to CEOs, PE firms, and really help to market them with their skills and the value they bring. And when you think about it that way, when you're talking about CEOs and PE firm owners and executives within those organizations, these are millionaires, these are billionaires, these are investors. It's really the most high value connection you can make. So of course, if you want to make more money and that's what's most important to you, you want to go where those people genuinely have the ability to pay top dollar. And here's something I learned about not only marketing and selling to this audience, but also servicing them. When I'm talking to a CEO, and this is no dig or judgment on anyone, everybody's on a different journey on their own ability to be decisive and trust themselves. But when you're dealing with a CEO that's really operating at a very high level, they don't really have time to know how the sausage is made. And then when you're talking to somebody who's never even come close to that level, but they want to break into like 6 figures, for example, that person wants to know every little detail. They want to know every step by step. They have to see the whole staircase before, because they want to make sure that this is going to work, because they're highly analytical and cynical and skeptical and less decisive. They're more information analyzers. Whereas the higher you go, they don't want to know all that detail. So you got to meet them where they're at. And it's a completely evolved way of communicating. You've got to be communicating at a 30,000 foot view. Because when you're talking to a CEO or even an executive, they have the attention span of a fly. So you've got to be clear, concise, and compelling. And I would argue that it's actually more important to be clear and concise than it is to be clever. Because with this audience, you need to make your communication digestible because they have so much bandwidth pulling on their attention. They've got 7 tracks going, multiple trains that are going on in their brain. So you want to make it so easy for them to understand your value. And here's where so many people go wrong with trying to market to these CEOs. They over explain, they write paragraphs, they use buzzwords, they use words like transformation, and they'll use words like strategic operating model, and they just get into all the buzzwords where it starts to dilute the clarity of the message. And so here's the number one tip for this audience. Think of this as like a big headline. What's the big problem you solve? Or what's the big outcome you deliver? And you want to speak as broadly as possible in most simple language that is going to be digestible, because then it's clear. Yes, now I understand. And if it's relevant and if it's a priority, it's worth considering. And so here's the next thing though. You can't control whether or not this is going to be relevant to that CEO. So if it's not relevant, they aren't going to respond. And another thing about getting to this audience, one thing we learned when we're marketing to them is most of them aren't going to immediately jump in and want to work with you. They're going to do a little bit of diligence. They're going to at least look at your website and take a snap judgment on if this is worth their time, if it is relevant. And we see this activity all the time with CEOs. They want to know that who they're dealing with is credible, that they're in business. They're looking for authority signals and trust signals. And so that's another thing, is they want to work with the real deal. They don't want to work with somebody that's a dabbler. So to really get to a place where you can be trusted with the amount of money and responsibility that they're going to hand you, they want to know that you actually have a track record of success. So this is kind of the tough news. It's a little bit of a bitter pill for people to swallow, but if you haven't done it or you're not 100% confident you can, then you're going to have a hard time converting this group, because ultimately they're buying certainty. Now, of course, you can fake it before you make it with this group, but you have to have absolute certainty that you can solve that problem and trust yourself fully that you can offer the value that you're marketing, because they're going to see right through you. They're really good at assessing who's the real deal and who's not. And it's a lot on how you are showing up, what questions you're asking, and how you're leading them to clarity. And this is a big one, because you have to know their problem better than they do. And once you demonstrate to these CEOs that you understand their problem better than them, you become the only viable solution, because they don't have time to go have a bunch of phone calls and go research and dig under the wells and Google and YouTube their way there. That's not how this buyer thinks. There's 2 types of buyers I've noticed when you're offering services. There's the ones that are, tell me what to do, tell me what to do. And then there's the one, do it for me. They know what to do. And I'm this buyer. I don't want anyone to tell me how to do it anymore. I want someone to do it for me. I have a bandwidth, not a know-how issue. I've been building companies for over a decade, and I know what I'm doing. I know exactly what I need to do. I don't need that kind of counsel. I need an executor. So that's a lot of this audience now. They value both though. I value both as well. But having someone there that's not only going to advise them, say, here's my recommendation, here's what I would do if I were in your shoes, you're offering value, then they're seeing your insight and perspective. And here's where so many people go wrong with trying to sell to CEOs is they try to hold back. They try to wait until there's a job. They don't want to give away too much for free. And here's the problem with that thinking. If you can solve their problem in 1 hour of talking to you, then it's not big enough to pay you for. So really start to think about that and start to think about the value of this relationship and providing that their ability to experience your value, because they may not need it now, but now they're front of mind as they talk to other CEOs or down the line when they need that problem solved. They know who to call because they already have that trust built in with you. And so this is where so many people get so attached to that one outcome of that conversation that they'll hold back and they'll make the conversation more transactional rather than allowing themselves to offer value and serve that CEO as if they're already working with you, and being able to really ask the right business diagnostic questions to uncover where are those pain points. Because what we're seeing with this specific type of buyer, a CEO, is there's usually 1, 2, max 3 burning hot button issues that are going to lead to that decision to invest in you and your services or hire you as an executive. And that comes down to your ability to uncover those pain points, those hot buttons. And you can always tell because that's when, you can see a shift in the energy, whether they start to talk more and they get excited, or you can see the frustration coming out. That's when you've hit a hot button issue. And that's how you can be relevant, is continuing to focus on going deeper on those hot button issues and speaking specifically to those hot button issues on how you can offer value. And this is where I think a lot of people go wrong. They don't come into these conversations fluid. They come in really trying to pre-engineer where they want things to go, and they start to offer value before they've really uncovered what that person needs and what their priorities are. And so the last thing you want to do is ask a couple questions to that CEO and say, yep, I could do that. You can hire me here, and I've done this for 10 years. And now you're just looking like you're really needy of a job and you're so attached to that outcome. And so when you can be more detached and not sell, you don't need to pitch and convince. Because when you try to pitch and convince this audience, they're going to move away from you. So you can't show up like you need them more than they need you. That cannot be the dynamic. And we call this really thinking about it like you're the doctor, right? You're the expert. You're the consultant. It's your job to diagnose, run your tests, do the x-rays, uncover all the issues, right? And only then, when you've done all the tests, you've asked all the questions, should you be prescribing potential solutions. If you rush to immediately say, I could do that, now you're shooting yourself in the foot because you haven't demonstrated enough authority, value, and trust, and you're skipping steps. So being able to ask more probing questions like, how long has this been an issue? What have you tried so far? It's important to uncover what have they actually done. Don't assume they haven't started to try a bunch of things, and you may end up shooting yourself in the foot by suggesting a solution that they already tried. And you look overly eager and you're not really trying to hear and understand that CEO. Now you're losing the value, because if you can't demonstrate through the questions you're asking that you understand their problem better than they do, then they're never going to trust you to hand over the wheel to take over that big priority for them. So that is something that we really go deep on in our program at Career Evolve, because in our opinion, if you've got a clear value proposition, you're relevant, you can solve a really big business problem that cannot be ignored, then you're not going to have any problem getting phone calls. That's really where I think the key is finding a really strong value proposition or hook or entry point to lead with. So, because the thing about CEOs is they're not just going to get on the phone to let you pick their brain. They're not going to just get on the phone to network. They don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. So I need to know, how is this relevant? How is this aligned with what I need to get done, with my business problems I need to get resolved, or with the goals that I'm focused on right now. So the biggest thing is finding a unique value proposition that is positioning around a problem, ideally a big bleeding neck business problem that cannot be ignored. Because when you're marketing yourself and your services, or however you want to put it, whether you're looking for a job or you're a consultant and you're a business owner, however you want to slice it, when you can position yourself as a solution to a big business problem that cannot be ignored, you will sell and you will command premium value in any market. And so that's something that I learned through Career Evolve, because our offer is really a must solve. We work with executives, the top 10% in the country, that when their career's off track, they're in a toxic work environment, they want to upgrade their career, they've been laid off, they have to solve that problem. And most people, by the time they get to the desk with us to have these conversations, they've already tried everything. And where they spend 80% of their life is their work, their career is their identity. So it's one of the most important problems in their life that they need to solve. So that's when you know you have a really good value proposition and an offer. But here's the thing, sometimes you just got to take a step back and own the fact that, you know what, I'm not quite ready to service and support the C-suite. I need to start lower on the tier, and I need to get my reps in. I need to prove that I have a process, I've got a methodology, I've got experience, I need to get results. You know, sometimes there's so many people out there that want to just say, just charge more money, or just make 250,000. We got to also be realistic here too, because I'm practical and I don't want to set anyone up for failure. But when you're targeting, like, let's just say I want to be a vice president, I want to target $250,000 opportunities. Well, that's great, but now you're competing against the top 5% in the country. So how do you know that you can deliver at a bigger scale? And of course, you need that opportunity, but you also need to have the level of conviction and self-trust. So when you're selling to a higher value audience, ultimately, it's a lot of this is energy, because you can't fake energy. And what I mean by energy is really when you have a big business problem and you want to hand that over to somebody to just take it off your plate so you don't have to worry about it at all. You want to know that that person has got this. So in many cases, they're going to be grilling you. What about this? What about this? Have you tried this? And you've got to be ready to hold that anxiety, hold that fear, and transfer certainty to them. Yes, I've got this. I've seen it hundreds of times. Or I've got this. Here's what we're going to do. I've got this. No need to worry. I will handle it. And so in that moment, you've got to be able to look them in the eye and provide leadership and a path forward to how you're going to take that off their plate. And this is where a lot of people at the lower levels of selling to a lower tier audience are more subservient. They're like, tell me what you want. We could do this. We could do that. And at this higher level, you've got to have a much stronger frame of, here's what I recommend. Here's your choice. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how I am going to guide us through this process and take this off your plate. How does that sound? So you're really making it simple and making it a simple decision for them. They still want it to be their decision, but you've got to really make it clear. And it's the 4 C's. I say this all the time to our clients. In order to really convert this audience, it's a lot of it's energy and, of course, experience, but you've got to have absolute conviction in the value and your ability to deliver that value. If there's even a crack in your certainty or belief around that, it's going to crumble under pressure. And they're going to sense that weakness. They're going to sense it, and they're going to pull back because they're looking for absolute certainty and absolute conviction. And so being willing to bet on yourself and own that value and own and trust yourself fully in your abilities, that's going to come through in how you're communicating and your ability to transfer that certainty to that person so that they're ready to hand over the wheel to you. Now, the last thing I'll say about this audience is they are used to being courted. They're used to being hunted by salespeople. They're used to being pursued for business opportunities. So how you can stand out is through leading with value, not leading with an ask, here's my resume, keep an eye out, I think I'm a great fit for this. That's what everybody else is doing. They're coming out the gate pitching. With this audience, they want to know, why do you want to speak to me specifically? Why do you align with my values and what's important to me? And if you don't really know this audience, then I recommend you just start to get to know them. Do your research, see what their priorities are. What are they posting about on social media? Where can you listen to them speak on a podcast or in at a conference? Start to get to know the demographic and what those hot button issues are for them, because the number one thing to being able to get somebody to even give you 10 minutes of their time is you have to be relevant. And relevance is really key to any successful marketing campaign. And so a lot of times, if you want to be more relevant to more people at the higher levels, you want to focus on what they care most about. So starting to speak their language and speak to what's most important now to them, that gives you more of their attention. So you've got to align. And I always tell people this, it's really better to position around problems than a nice to have outcome. Because if you really want to command the most value, you've got to solve bigger problems because there's more value there. Don't get me wrong, you can sell the outcome, but you want to meet them where they're at and position yourself around business problems that you can solve, because now you're attracting people to the table that actually have that problem right now. If you're focused on outcomes, then outcomes can always be ignored. You can kick the can, maybe next month, call me in 6 months, right? But if you've got a really big business problem, you cannot ignore that, or it gets bigger and bigger and you go out of business. So starting to think of what are the most big business problems, one, I'm excited to solve, and two, that I'm absolutely confident I can solve. And how can I communicate that as concisely as possible? And so this is what we do all day, every day. These are proven strategies and tactics that we use to really help get CEOs on the phone, market them. They're not only our clients, but we're also marketing to them on our premium clients' behalf. So this is something that we know. These are basic marketing principles, but a lot of people don't operate with this, and the attention spans are just getting smaller and smaller as you go. And so I highly recommend that you take a look at that. And if you want to go deeper on this subject, go ahead and check out careerevolve.com. We have all kinds of free resources that you can check out to learn more about this process. If you really want to upgrade your ability to command your value, upgrade your career, you want to really start to explore what's possible for you. All right, I hope this was helpful. Please share it with anybody that could get value from it, and we will see you next week.